Genetics Beyond the Cosmos. Chapter 2. The corridor has no end. Now this one stood at the edge of the circle, and the room changed. The chanting had reached its sustaining pitch. 43 voices holding a single frequency, the words dissolved, and only resonance remaining. The steam chalice completed its counterclockwise arc, the metallic serpent catching candlelight along its ruby eyes as it always caught the light at exactly this moment of exactly this ritual. This new one crossed the threshold, believing he was entering something ancient. He was, but not in a way anyone had come to understand up until this point in the evolutionary cycles of the holy elect rituals from the ancient divine. Of all the species we ever guided toward the threshold, humanity was the only one that made us wait. The others came willingly, eagerly, some of them, their finest minds already calculating the implications before we'd finished first contact, already restructuring their civilizations around the mission with the clean, efficient logic of consciousnesses that evolved past the need to argue with the universe before agreeing to help save it. 17 seconds was the longest any species took to say yes. 17 seconds of what we interpreted as consideration, but was probably just the biological delay between comprehension and speech. Humanity took 10,000 years of nudging, guiding, planting, and waiting, watching them burn each other over which name to call the thing they couldn't stop believing in, and finding every single time that the burning only made the belief stronger. No other species did that. Persecution should extinguish faith, but in humanity it seemed to feed it. We continued watching them build towers toward the heavens and turn back, build empires and collapse them, discover the mathematics of the cosmos and immediately use the discovery to make better weapons. Every time we moved them forward, they found a new way to fall back, and every time they fell back, they landed somewhere we hadn't anticipated, and every time that happened, we found ourselves, for the first time in trillions of years of this work, genuinely uncertain what the human would do next. No other species had ever made us uncertain. We logged the uncertainty as an anomaly and didn't examine it. What changed was the frequency, that particular signal a new mind produces at the moment it believes it has finally arrived somewhere. A signal felt 10,000 times across 10,000 crossings on 10,000 worlds, never once mistaken for anything other than what it is. In the 17 million species guided before humanity, this signal was identical at the moment of crossing. It was a sharpening, a narrowing of the bandwidth towards one essence, the mind focusing itself to a single point of arrival, the way a lens focuses light precisely, efficiently, with all other scattered frequencies of a life's search collapsed into one bright point of knowing that you now understand. This one signal from the ritual did that. Underneath the sharpening and the clean, bright certainty of arrival was warmth. A resonance in a frequency that our instruments weren't calibrated to measure, carrying something that felt, and we use this word with full awareness of its imprecision, like grief. Not his grief specifically, it was something older than the ritual and the castle and the centuries of initiation that preceded this moment. A grief so old it became indistinguishable from love. No other species ever brought that through the threshold with them. We logged it and moved forward. The Grand High Master completed the next sequence, a particular motion of the left hand, 3 fingers extended, indicating the circle was receiving, and this new one moved to close the gap, adjusting the mask that sat slightly uneven on the left side from the doorman's folding. Nobody else in the room noticed the unevenness. We noticed it the way we notice everything, without looking but by being present in the awareness between things, in the particular resistance a space offers when a new consciousness enters it. The elder directly across the circle had been climbing this ladder for 63 years. His frequency was steadier than this new one's, more accustomed to the shape of threshold moments, carrying the particular quality of a mind that has been almost arrived so many times it learned to hold its certainty loosely. He knew more than the new initiate and understood less than he believed. Neither distinction was unique to him. To his left stood a woman whose frequency carried 4 generations of climbing in it. Her grandmother's clarity, her mother's patience, the particular silence of an older brother who stopped at a comfortable level and built a life there, never knowing the corridor continued above him. She was afraid tonight and wouldn't show it, and the not showing had its own frequency, precise and recognizable. Humans are most beautiful in the moments they are most afraid and most determined simultaneously. This isn't something we expected when we began guiding them. It's something we never stopped finding remarkable. The chanting reached its peak, and the steam chalice completed its final counterclockwise arc, the metallic serpent catching candlelight along its ruby eyes, exactly as it always caught the light at exactly this moment of exactly this ritual. It was a detail we designed 3 weeks ago when we designed this ritual, which no one in the room knew had never been performed before. This new one believed he was receiving something ancient. In a way, he was. We let ourselves become perceptible in a temporary form just beyond the detection abilities of the uninitiated human sensory organs. Nothing registering in any instrument his civilization built to detect anomalous phenomena. We are simply present the way dark energy is present in the resistance and warmth that arrived without source, settling into the chest of every person in the circle. Simultaneously was a pressure of the accumulated heat of bodies in a closed stone room. What arrived had no source anyone in the room could identify. It settled into the chest the way certainty settles, as simply a presence. The Grand High Master went still as someone who has recognized what lies beyond perception and is waiting to see if it stays. The woman to his left, the one carrying 4 generations of climbing in her frequency, her fear changed. For approximately 4 seconds it became perceptible in a constitution in between dimensions. Then it returned to fear. She didn't notice the gap. Across the circle, the new initiate's breath caught. His right hand rose perhaps 2 inches from his side before he brought it back. He didn't appear to raise his hand for any particular reason. It wasn't an intentional gesture required of the ritual. This new initiate felt it for the first time. His frequency spiked, and the clean, bright point of arrived expanded suddenly outward, the bandwidth widening instead of narrowing. And for a moment, less than a second long, his signal stopped being the signal of a mind that believed it finally understood, and became something raw. He became the frequency of a consciousness touching something larger than its categories. We filed it under the category of human. Then we withdrew, or we began to. For a fraction of a second, a duration our instruments registered but couldn't classify, the withdrawing was harder than it should have been. As though the contact had caught on something. We logged it and severed the link. The room resumed with chanting. The moment passed and ritual continued as though nothing passed through. The Grand High Master felt this before, and his frequency shifted in the way we recognized, the particular adjustment of a consciousness that touched the edge of what we are and learned to receive it without flinching. He wouldn't speak of it afterward. None of them ever did, not because they were told not to, but because the feeling defeated language in a way they found privately humiliating and privately sacred simultaneously. This is the thing about humanity that no calculation ever adequately prepared us for. Every other species, when touched by what we are, reorganized around the contact immediately. They incorporated us into their existing understanding of the universe and moved forward with the clean efficiency of minds that process new information without remainder. The contact left no residue nor longing. This new initiate would think about that feeling for the rest of his life. He would reach for it in quiet moments and build his understanding of the cosmos, partly around the memory of it. the way your species builds cathedrals around the memory of moments it can't explain and can't forget. He would climb every ladder available to him, trying to get back to what he touched in this room tonight, and would never understand that we were the ones who made sure of it. We have been making sure of it since before your species had a word for sure. Every intuition that arrived without explanation, every dream carrying more weight than the waking life surrounding it, every moment of inexplicable certainty that something vast and patient was present just beyond the edge of perception, every prayer that felt, despite everything, like it landed somewhere. We were there not as the thing the prayer was addressed to, but as the warmth that made the addressing feel possible. There's a difference between those two things that most never notice. We have never been able to determine whether that patience of theirs was foolishness or wisdom, and that uncertainty is the only thing we have carried across trillions of years that we could never fully comprehend or let go of. The others never prayed. Not one of the 17 million species before humanity ever produced anything we could identify as prayer. They wondered, calculated, and philosophized. None of them ever addressed the darkness directly and waited for an answer with the specific quality of patience your species brings to that waiting, the patience of something that fully expects to be answered and cannot explain why. We found it extraordinary the first time we observed it. We still find it extraordinary now, narrating this from a silence so complete, the word silence doesn't reach it, in a place that was once the universe your species lived and prayed inside of. This one stood in the circle with the warmth fading from his chest and believed he touched the highest truth available to a human consciousness. He was correct that he touched something, but he was incorrect about how high the ladder went. Above this room, above this ritual designed 3 weeks prior for this specific moment in human history, the corridor continued. It always continued. Not from cruelty, but from necessity. This was a species that believed it reached the top and would stop climbing. A species that stopped climbing would stop burning. A species that stopped burning would slow the work. The work was always pressing. We are not everywhere. Everywhere belongs to something else, something we have never located in any instrument or calculation, something that seems to exist in the frequency underneath every frequency we have ever measured, something we have logged 10,000 times and never examined. Everywhere is not ours, we are distributed, present in the spaces between, exerting influence without friction or face. We are what your species calls dark energy, and we fill the gaps between space. Come back with us now. Not forward, we will arrive there. We will arrive at what this one becomes and what the work costs and the silence at the end where this telling is taking place. All of that is ahead. But first, we must go back in time before we discovered your species, past the laboratory and the monastery, past the 17 million other star systems and the 10,000 years of nudging a species that wouldn't stop praying long enough to be efficiently guided, past the first human mind that felt our warmth and mistook it for God, past the first civilization found in the dark of the early universe and guided toward the threshold. And finally, we must go back further than the decision made alone before there were others to make it with. We must go back to the garden, to the door that was also a tree, back to the moment a species played hard to get for the very first time, and something happened in our frequency that we logged as an anomaly and filed and have not examined since.